Once upon a time, there lived a king who was left with two little daughters, the two princesses, when his wife died. Not very long after his wife died, he married again. His second wife did not care for her stepchildren and was often unkind to them. King Uchenna, their father, never troubled himself to look after them, but allowed his wife to treat them as she liked. This made the poor girls very unhappy. And one day, one of them said to the other, "Let's not stay here. Let's run into the jungle, for nobody here cares whether we go or stay." So they both walked off into the jungle and lived for many days on jungle fruit. After they had wandered on for a long while, they came to a fine palace which belonged to an orc. But both the orc and his wife were out when they got there. One of the princesses said to the other, "This fine palace in the middle of the jungle can belong to no one but the horrible orc that has hurt our people for so long. But no one is at home now. Let us go in and see if we can find anything to eat. I am so tired of fruit jungle." So they went to the orc house and found some rice. One princess left kept watch out of the window while the other boiled their dinner. They hadn't even finished their meal and put the dishes to the sink when the orc and his wife returned home. The two princesses were so frightened that they ran up to the top of the house and hid themselves on the flat roof, where they could look down onto the inner courtyard of the house, and from the other could see the open country. But the rooftop was a favorite spot of the orc and his wife. Here, they would sit on the hot summer evening or hang their clothes to dry in the open sun. The two princesses had to hide. They found shelter behind some stalks of corn, but that would not hide them for long. When they all came into the house, he looked around and said to his wife, "Someone has been moving the furniture. Everything looks different. Wife, did you do this?" "No," she said. "I don't know who could have done all this." "Someone also has been cooking the rice," continued the orc. "Wife, did you cook the rice?" "No," she answered. "I did not do it. I don't know who did it." Then the orc walked round and round several times with his nose up in the air, saying, "Someone is here right now. I smell human flesh and blood. Where can they be?" "Stuff and nonsense," said the wife. "You smell flesh and blood indeed. Why, with all the humans you killed only this morning, I should wonder if you didn't still smell flesh and blood." They went on quarreling this way until the ox said, "Well, never mind. I don't know how it is, but I'm very thirsty. Let's go outside and drink some water." So both the ox and his wife went to a well close to the house, and they began letting down jars into it and drawing up the water and drinking it. And the princesses who were on top of the house saw them. Now, the younger of the two princesses was a very clever girl, and when she saw the ogre and his wife by the well, she said to the sister, "I will do something now that will be good for us and good for everyone." Running down quickly from the top of the house, she crept close behind the ogre and his wife as they stood on tiptoe over the side of the well. The girl grabbed hold of one of the ogre's heel with one hand and one of his wife's heel with her other hand, gave each a mighty push, and knocked the ox down into the well. They both were drowned. The princesses then returned to her sister and said, "I killed the ox." "What, both of them?" cried her sister. "Yes, both," she said. "Won't they come back?" said her sister. "Never," she said. So the two princesses lived happily in the ogre's house for a long time. In it, they found rich clothes and jewelries, gold and silver, which the ogre had taken from people before he killed them. Every morning, the youngest princess would tender to the flocks of chicken and herds of cow, taking them off to pasture while the other one stayed at home, cooked the dinner, and kept the house clean. The younger princess, who was the wise one, would often say to her sister in the morning, "Take care that if you see any stranger, be it a man or a woman or a child, come by the house to hide so that nobody may know that we live here. If anyone should call out and ask for a drink or water, or any poor beggar asks for food, before you give it to them, be sure you put on rag clothes and cover your face with charcoal and make yourself as ugly looking as possible. Otherwise, seeing how fair you are, they might steal you away and we will never meet again." "Very well," her older sister would answer. "I will do as you say." But a long time passed and no one ever came by that way. At last, one day, after the younger princess had gone out, an old woman, the wife of a neighboring king, who has been traveling for many days with her attendant, came near the place while searching for water. When the woman, whose name was Monica, saw the fine palace standing all by itself in the middle of the jungle, she was very much astonished and said, "It is a strange thing that anyone should have built such a house in the middle of the forest, and let's go in. The owners will definitely give us a drink of water." "No, no, no, do not go," cried her attendant. "This is mostly assured the house of an og. I should scarcely think anything very terrible lives there, for there is not a sound stirring, nor a living creature to be seen." So she began tapping at the door, which was bolted, and called, "Will someone, whoever owns this house, give me and my people some water or drink? We are thirsty." But nobody answered, for the princess, who heard her coming, was busy up in her room, blackening her face with charcoal and covering her rich dress with rags. Then Monica got impatient and shook the door angrily. "Let's come in, whoever you are. If you don't, I'll force the door open." At this, the poor little princess got dreadfully frightened, and having blackened her face and made herself look as ugly as possible, she ran downstairs with a pitcher of water. Unbolting the door, she gave Monica the pitcher to drink from, but the maiden did not speak, for she was afraid. Now, Monica was a very clever woman, and as she raised the pitcher to her mouth to drink the water, she thought to herself, "This is a very strange looking creature who has brought me the jug of water. She would be pretty, but that her face seemed to need washing, and her dress also is very untidy. What can that black stuff be on her face and hand? It looks very unnatural." And so, instead of drinking the water, she threw it on the princess's face. The princess started back with a little cry, while the water trickling down her face washed off the charcoal and showed her delicate features and beauty complexion. Monica caught hold of her hand and said, "Now tell me the truth. Who are you? Where do you come from? Who is your father and mother? And why are you here alone by yourself in the jungle? Answer me or I'll have your head cut off." As she summoned one of her guards who drew his sword. The princess was so terrified she could hardly speak, but at last she could. She told her she was the daughter of a king who had run away into the jungle because of her cruel stepmother. And finding the house, she lived there ever since. And having finished her story, she began to cry. Then Monica said to her, "Pretty child, forgive me for my rudeness. Do not fear. I will take you home with me. As the daughter of a king, you should be a proper wife for my son." But the more she spoke to the princess, the more frightened the princess began, and could do nothing but cry. Now the girl had said nothing to the queen about her sister, nor even told her that she had one, for she thought, "Monica says she will kill me. If she hears that I have a sister, then she may kill her too." At last, Monica said to one of her servants, "Place this young lady in one of her chariots, and we will set off for home." When the princess found herself shut in the chariot and being carried, she knew nowhere she was terrified. If only her sister would come back and save her. That was what she thought. Round her neck was strings of pearls. She untied them and tearing her sari, the rope, into little bits, tied one pearl in each of the sari. Then it might be heavy enough to fall straight to the ground. And so she went on dropping one pearl and then another and another, all the way as they went, until they reached the palace where the queen lived. She threw the last remaining pearl down just as they reached the palace gate. Monica commanded her son to appear. When he did, she said, "My son, you have been so long. Now, here is your bride. I told you that if you do not choose one for yourself, I will find one for you, and so I have. Here she is." And she thrust the girl forward. She was still weeping, and the prince could tell that she was hardly a willing bride. When they were alone, he whispered, "Fear not, maiden. I will postpone the wedding for as long as I can. And if the wedding must take place, you will not be forced to say or do anything you do not want to do." But she barely heard him, thinking only of her sister, and too distraught and fearful to say or do anything. Meanwhile, the younger sister, who had been out with flocks when the queen took away her sister, returned home. When she came back, she found the door wide open, no one standing there. She thought it was odd, for her sister always came every night to the door to meet her on her return. She went upstairs. Her sister was nowhere to be found. Everywhere was empty and deserted. There, she must stay all alone, for the evening has closed, and it was impossible to go out and seek her with any hope of success. So all night long she waited, crying, "Someone has been here, and they have stolen her away. They have stolen my darling sister away. Oh, my sister, oh, my sister." Next morning, very early, going out to continue the search, she found one of the pearls belonging to her sister's necklace tied to a small piece of sari. A little further on lay another and yet another. All along the road Monica has gone. Then the princess understood that her sister had left her a clue to guide her on her way, and she at once set off to find her. Very, very far she went, a 2 months' journey through the jungle, for she could not travel fast. The many days walking tired her so much, and sometimes it took her 2 or 3 days just to find the next piece of sari with the pearl. At last, she came near a large town, to which it was evident her sister had been taken. Now, the young princess was very beautiful indeed, as beautiful as she was, and was wise. And when she got near the town, she thought to herself, "If people see me, they might steal me away as they did my sister, and then I shall not find her again. I will disguise myself." As she was thus thinking, she noticed by the side of the road a skeleton and a shriveled, dry fur of an old tiger. The princess took the skin and washed it, and threw it all over her lonely face and neck. Then she took a long stick and began hobbling along, leaning on it towards the town. On she went, picking up the pearl, one here, one there, until she found the last pearl just in front of the palace gate. Then she felt certain her sister must be somewhere near, but where she did not know. She longed to go into the palace and ask for her, but no guards would let such a wretched-looking old woman enter, and she did not dare to ask them. So she determined merely to remain as close to the palace as possible and wait till fortune favored her with the means of learning something further about her sister. Just opposite the palace was a small house belonging to a farmer, and the princess went up there and stood by the door. The farmer's wife saw her and said, "Poor old woman, who are you? Why are you here? Have you no one in this world?" "Ah, no," answered the princess. "I am a poor old woman, and have neither a father or mother, son or daughter, sister nor brother. to take care of me. All are gone, and I can only beg my bread from door to door. Do not grieve, O mother, answered the farmer's wife kindly. You may sleep in the shelter of our porch, and I will give you food. So the princess stayed there for that night and for many more. And every day, the good farmer's wife gave her food. But all the time, she could learn nothing of her sister. Now, there was a large tank near the palace on which grew some fine lotus plants covered with rich crimson lotus, the royal flower. And of this Monica was very fond indeed, and prized them very much. To this tank, because it was nearest to the farmer's house, the princess would go there every morning, very early, almost before it was light, at about 3 o'clock, and take off the old tiger skin that helped her to look like an old man, washed it and hung it there to dry, and washed her face and hand and bathed her face in the cool water and comb her beautiful hair. Then she would gather a lotus flower such she would have been accustomed to wear it by her hair as a child, and put it on, so as to feel for a few minutes like herself again. Thought she would amuse herself. Afterwards, as soon as the wind had dried the old skin, she would put it on again, threw away the lotus flower, and hurried back to the farmer's door before the sun was up. After a time, Monica discovered that someone had plucked some of her favorite lotus flower. People were set to watch, and all the wise men in the kingdom put their heads together to try and discover the thief. But to no avail. At last, the excitement about this matter being very great, the queen's younger son, a brave and noble young princess, said, I will certainly discover the thief. It changed that several fine trees grew round the tank. Into one of these the young prince climbed one evening, and there he watched all night through, but with no more success than his predecessors. The lotus plant lay still in the moonlight without so much as a tide and wind came to break off one of the flowers. The prince began to get very sleepy and thought the thief, whoever he might be, could not intend to return then. In the very early morning, before it was light, who could come down to the tank but an old woman he had often seen near the palace gate? Ah, the prince thought, then she must be the thief. But what can this queer old woman want with lotus flowers? Imagine his astonishment when the old woman sat down on the steps of the tank and began pulling the skin off her face and arms, and from underneath the shivered yellow skin came the loveliest face he had ever beheld, so fair, so fresh, so young, so glorious, beautifully. Then, appearing thus suddenly, dazzled the prince's eyes like a flash of lightning. Ah, he said, can this be a woman or a spirit? A devil or an angel in disguise? The princess twisted up her glossy black hair, and plucking a red lotus, placed it in there and dabbled her feet in the water, and amused herself by putting round her neck a string of the pearl that has been in her sister's neck. Then, as the sun was rising, she threw away the lotus and, covering her face and arms again with the withered skin, went hastily away. When the prince got home, the first thing he said to his mother was, Mother, I would like to marry that old woman who stands all day by the farmer's gate just opposite. What? Cried Monica. You are mad. Marry that skinny old thing? You cannot. You're a prince. And are there not enough princesses in the world that you wish to marry a wretched old beggar woman? But he said, above all things, I should like to marry that old man. You know that I have ever been a dutiful and obedient son. In this matter, I pray you grant me my desire. Seeing he was really an earnest about this opinion, and nothing she could say would alter or change his mind. She agreed. However, without telling him the terms, what a terrible mistake he was making. Then he sent out the guards who fetched the old woman. Yes, she was married to the prince privately, and with as little ceremony as possible. Monica wanted no one to know about the matter. As soon as the wedding was over, the prince said to his wife, "Gentle wife, tell me how much longer you intend to wear the old skin. You had better take it off. Do be so kind." The princess wondered how he knew of her disguise, and whether it was only a guess. She thought, he seems kind, but if I take off this ugly skin, my husband will think me pretty, and perhaps he will shut me up in the palace, never let me go out, and then I shall never be able to find my sister. No, I had better not take it off. So she answered, "I don't know what you mean. Nobody can change her skin." This she mumbled as if she were a very old man indeed, and had lost all her teeth and could not speak plain. At this, the prince laughed very much to himself and thought, "I'll wait and see how long this lasts." But the princess continued to keep the old skin. Only every morning at about 3 o'clock, before it was light, she would get up and wash it and put it on. Then sometimes after the prince, having found this out, got up softly one morning early and followed her to the next room, where she had washed the skin and placed it on the door to dry. Stealing it, he ran away with the skin and threw it in the fire. So the princess, having no old skin to put on, was obliged to appear in her own likeness. As she walked forth, very sad at missing her disguise, her husband ran to meet her, smiling and saying, "How do you do, my dear? Where is your skin now?" Soon the whole palace had heard the joyful news of the beautiful young wife that the prince has won, and all the people, when they saw her, cried, "Why, she's exactly like the beautiful princess our young prince married, the jungle lady." The younger prince took her to introduce her bride to his older brother's wife. No sooner did the princess enter her sister-in-law's room than she saw that it's her lost sister she would lost, and ran into each other's arms. Great then was the joy of all, but the happiest of all